We are well away on a mission to bring the only one true world peace to the ultimate DeathWorld planet of Novice, which is of course by full extermination of any life form on this planet. But after all that automatic onslaught, now the going gets tough. So let's get going. Native life is still clinging on by a thread, existing in the twilight zone between the rich, green and artillery shell covered plains of Novice and the deep dark void of nothingness. We now need to find a way to convince the last remaining biters on the edges of the world to just fall off the face of the planet. Now, while the automatic artillery range cannot reach the remaining biters, the manual artillery range is much greater. That sounds like an easy solution, solvable in just a few thousand clicks. But there is a problem. You see, when we target enemy nests directly on the edge of the world, the artillery shell explosion bleeds over into the void, which generates and reveals a new chunk of land filled with new biter bases. We also cannot just walk in with a remote controlled spider, as the spider itself explores a 5x5 area of chunks around it, which means the spider cannot come close by enough to fire at the biters, no matter what type of rocket it carries. As a quick refresher, in the past we have carefully determined the extent of the visible and hidden world generation in the void, and then proceeded to reveal all of it without generating any new hidden chunks. As of now, theoretically there are no more biter bases hiding in the black void, and I got several ways to check and prove that later. But while we can't carpet bomb the biter bases on the very edge of the world, there are still plenty of biter bases which are certified shell safe. So, let's start clicking! And soon the northern edge looks like this, just a thin red line of biter bases remaining. Now, due to the artillery range radius being circular and the map being square, we can't reach a large amount of biters in the far corner of the map, so we have to target all of these nests and worms by hand. The fact that this unreachable area outside of our artillery range squircle grows in size with every extra artillery range upgrade is an important reason we push the walls out further one last time, instead of just researching more levels of artillery range in our existing base. And as it turns out, artillery range 3 lines up pretty well with the maximum radar scan range, which has led us to set up uninterrupted full satellite radar view with 20,000 radars pulling 6 gigawatts of power. So now we have to fire thousands of artillery shells by hand with just a single misclick leading to near unrecoverable damage. An accidental newly generated chunk will throw several spanners in the works, as I'm relying on a perfectly square world border to execute my plan. So our main strategy is to carefully separate the problematic border bases from the inner safe nests before proceeding to spam click the large inner blob of biters. And then in the end, we can clean up by playing a game of click the red dots. But man, it is nice to have that full satellite view available. Imagine trying to do this in the fog of war from the map view, the map not being updated, resulting in not knowing which dots are the Walking Dead and which dots are nests and worms. This process would have been a lot more tedious. We are beautifully executing our Dark Forest game theory next to the Dark Forest of Novice. The relentless bombing continues through the night into the day. While the biters continue to pound on the weakest point in our defense, the distant southwest corner where the lake and forests converge all incoming biters into a single attack zone. But if they weren't able to breach our walls during the giant automatic artillery barrage, they certainly won't be able to breach the walls on their last dying breath. And meanwhile we are 3/4 of the way in on going full squircle. We have discovered a remote inhabited island, and we can see the game will help us a little in getting rid of any nomadic biters. It seems that if the biters are no longer attached to a biter base and they can't retreat to a different biter base, they tend to just despawn. Thanks game, that will help us a lot with the cleanup, I imagine. But Michael, you may say, you keep telling us there is no more land in the Black Void, yet I clearly see loads of biters wandering off and back onto the map. Clearly there is land generated beyond your imaginary edge of the world. Well, my man, you do have a point actually. The situation lies a little more complicated though. For now, we can regard the biter situation in the void as Schrödinger's biters. They both exist and don't exist at the same time. And for as long as we are not trying to force them into choosing a state, they will remain in a quantum superposition of both existing and not existing. It is only when we try to look if they exist or not that the superposition will break and they will choose one of those two forms. And just like Einstein once famously snorted, "Do you really believe the moon is not there when you are not looking at it?" The biters tend to choose to exist when you try to look if they exist. Well, no one can argue Einstein wasn't a smart dude, but we can try to get around the annoying breaking of the biter superposition by exploiting the wave-particle duality of biters. Just like in the famous double slit experiment where individually fired particles of light still form a wave interference pattern, and researchers have been trying to trick the quantum state of the photons by finding ways to indirectly measure the light in such a way that the properties of the light are not disturbed. We must try to find a way to trick the quantum biters by indirectly looking into the chunks in the void without disturbing the superposition of the chunk, so we can confirm that these chunks indeed are empty. So somehow we need to look into the void chunks without actually looking into the void chunks, as that will disturb the quantum state of the biters and cause them to fall into one of the two possible states. And as mentioned before, the biters tend to choose to exist when you try to look at them. Okay dude, so how the heck are we going to solve two higher physics problems in the game of Factorio? Anyway, the relentless bombing continues through the day into the night. And not before long we are clicking the last lucky survivors who survived the initial carpet bombing. And while we rejoice in the fact that there's just a single thin red line of biters remaining at the absolute edges of the map, the biters embark on their fruitless final assault on our walls. The Great Wall of Novi stands unscathed and has withstood the largest assault in the history of Factorio, with over 100,000 biters assaulting our base during the last few hours alone. Well, perhaps you cannot say entirely without a scratch, but our science production did not suffer at all, and we've been reliably outputting the full 94.5 signs per minute for the last 10 hours now. Well, yeah, that's great and all, but that doesn't solve the problem at hand now, does it? How are we going to solve our quantum biter problem? Heck man, you haven't even found a way yet to clear the non-quantum biters, as those pesky border biters certainly are existing, alive and well. Well, back to our spiders. The White Recluse's task is pretty simple. Defend the defenseless Black Widow with your 8 personal laser defenses. But why is the Black Widow defenseless? Well, because I outfitted it with 9 personal roboports. 9 personal roboports on 4 personal batteries? Are you serious? Don't you know how power hungry those roboports are? Why do you need 9 of them? Well, my friend, that will become obvious very soon. Alright, White Recluse, follow the Black Widow and defend him with your life. Meanwhile, some biter group which was on the way to attack us without any provocation from our side forgotten their mission halfway through their march and are just standing there. That means our earlier observation of despawning biters doesn't apply if the biters go inactive for some reason. Anyway, our spiders have arrived at the outer wall, and as we send them to the very edge, this is it. If they take one more step, it'll be the farthest away from home they've ever been. Come on spiders, it is time to step into the unknown. And we did reserve one little task for the White Recluse, to draw a power line out to the edge of the world. And while the spiders embark on their journey, we manually take out an enemy expansion. A perfect opportunity to test the White Recluse's defense systems. Or is it? Only one of the biters makes it through. 2 seem to have despawned already and another one starts running back. And that one despawns too. Well, that wasn't really any representative defensive test then. We still have to look out to not run into enemy expansion parties. Another reason to be glad we have the Satellite Surveillance System 2000. Anyway, as the Black Widow approaches as close to the edge of the world as he can without generating any new land, we see the reason for the 9 roboports. Every additional roboport grants an increase to the area the bots can build in, and with 9 personal roboports, the spider can just about place laser turrets far enough out to take out the last remaining biters on the true edge of the world. And most importantly, the lasers can take out the biters without generating any new terrain. Or are they? There are clearly biters emerging from the black void. Are those quantum biters which have just materialized into existence? Or is something else going on? I guess we'll find out soon. And as we clear up the corner, we can obviously see the laser's range is extending firmly beyond what we currently believe is the edge of the world. Anyway, the big worms are outranging our lasers, so let's draw the laser line down to the nearest lake. And we can even see the lasers firing a target in the so-called empty void. This is getting more mysterious by the moment. And as we retreat, it seems like all laser firing has ceased and peace and calm has returned to the area near the laser turrets. So let's make a save point so we can finally perform our quantum biter experiment. Are there biters in the void or are there not? Our laser turret range is clearly expanding 8 tiles into the void, yet they are not firing. It could be they just destroyed all targets already, but as you just saw, big worms outrange our laser turrets, yet we are not under attack. That means the chunk must be empty, right? The biters seem to not exist. Until we look if they exist with our Spidertron. Suddenly they do exist, and as we pause the game, the biters, biter bases and worms have literally materialized within the range of our laser turrets. Even though before we looked they were not there. Even when we were literally firing our lasers into the void earlier, these new nests didn't exist yet. But now the spider has disturbed the quantum superposition of the biters and they now very clearly exist, and given some time, they'll completely obliterate our feeble laser turret line. But okay, I hear ya. Spidertron literally looking into the void himself is obvious to generate and reveal new chunks. This doesn't prove much, really. We need to look into the new chunks without actually looking. So let's put our hazard concrete border to the test. We set that border for ourselves 20 chunks away from the edge of the world, believing it would stop further world generation. Let's put our assumption to the test. As I am currently riding in Spider-Ben, we task him to carry us just a couple steps beyond our hazard concrete border. And suddenly our northwest laser turrets are in severe combat. Biters are emerging from everywhere, and after the first wave calms down somewhat, we clearly see there now exists worms into the void, which are outranging our turrets and attacking us over the entire northern line. And we're starting to lose turrets left and right. And indeed, while standing at our current location beyond the hazard concrete border, we can confirm our suspicions with our theoretic world border blueprint, which predicts terrain is now slowly generating in the background outside the revealed part of the map. And as we reveal the entire world by command to verify, our theory is confirmed. One extra row of chunks has now been added to the world, but only one extra row. This means that before we crossed the border, one less row existed, matching our previously predicted world border. In fact, we also stated that the background world generation isn't instant but generates at about 1 chunk per second. So let's step out 1 chunk to the west to see that process in action. Okay, let's see that one more time in slow motion. First the south lasers activate, then the adjacent chunk pops into existence and we can literally see big worms materialize on the previous edge of the world. Now they exist, our lasers quickly kill them, as well as a bunch more worms and nests supposedly generated with the new chunk. So let's reveal the whole world again by command, which indeed reveals the previously ungenerated column of chunks, with big worms now destroying our lasers on the entire west flank. The fact that the very corner chunk is not generated further strengthens our theory about the background map generation, as we were never in the chunk directly northwest of our hazard concrete corner, and thus the most northwestern world border chunk still does not exist. Anyway, obviously another way to mess everything up is by wildly flinging artillery shells into the void, so let's not do that. Let's end this experimental session and reload to our real playthrough. The version of this world where the lasers sit idly on the world border, unbeknownst to the fact that hordes of biters could materialize within the range at any careless moment. So let's continue with care then. Meanwhile, I have made another set of landfill blueprints to cross the lakes with the spiders, keeping the landfill a safe distance away from the actual chunk border. As long as we keep the spiders in the third chunk from the world border, we should not generate any new chunks in the process. The biters keep trying to make new expansions all the time, but our full square of land-based artillery turrets at our walls make quick work of those. So we continue the short distance down south to the next lake. Our lasers suffer heavy damage and even get destroyed now and then, but it doesn't matter. Collectively they get the job done. The only thing that we need to be careful of is the power line connection. If that breaks, it will cut power from all the lasers and leave them as sitting ducks. To minimize the chance of that horror scenario happening, we placed thrice the substations needed in our blueprint, meaning that any two adjacent substations can be destroyed without interrupting our power line. And as we reach the lake, we quickly check back to see if any of our laser turrets are still fighting the enemy or getting destroyed by big worms in the void. Fortunately, that's not the case, so it looks like my plan will turn out to be a great success. Of course, one should never celebrate too early. So let's bridge that lake, and in fact, let's pre-place the landfill blueprints a good ways ahead. All seems to be going very well. But not before long. Yeah, we reached the limitations of carrying around 9 roboports with the bots flying out their maximum distance all the time. The spider's personal batteries are already empty. I'll be back. So we might as well send them back to the base to restock on supplies while the personal roboports and batteries recharge themselves. Meanwhile, we load up Spider-Ben with 9 roboports as well and give him a whole bunch of repair packs. We will repair those unsightly damaged laser turrets for the same reason as we blew up the landfill with atomic bombs earlier. It looks nicer on the map. Yeah, it takes more time to repair than to replace. Spider-Man will have to take it a little more slowly. Meanwhile, the black and white spider's batteries are fully recharged, so we can send them back out again. Unfortunately, we cannot place more batteries in their armor, as we need a fusion reactor for the power and the full 9 robopods to reach the world border. I foresee this power problem may come back to bite us in the bottom at some point. The spiders continue on their way down south. This time with much better cinematography. Hey, I'm learning these techniques as we go along too, man. Armed with our landfill blueprints, even crossing these kinds of marshland archipelagos are no problem for our spider team. And soon we reach the southwest corner. As the spider team runs out of battery power for the second time, we need something else to do. So we decide to finally get rid of our old, obsolete inner wall. Soon the bots are swarming all over the place and we slowly see the old wall and turrets disappear. And not before long, our spider team is continuing on the south section of the laser turret extermination wall. Man, this is satisfying to watch even from the map view. And we got Spider-Man trailing behind with the repair packs now. Actually, there even is another way to check for the presence of biters in the dark void. If we switch on the enemy expansion chunk view, we can see all valid locations for the biters to make expansions. As a rule, these locations extend up to 7 chunks away from every existing biter base. Before we started the laser cleanup, we had a full square of expansion chunks around the map, but now the expansion chunk candidates are disappearing as we push forward with our laser turret extermination line. Hey, I almost forgot we had a base. Another set of rockets is preparing to launch. But they don't launch just yet. The simple circuit condition we set to just keep up with yellow signs causes the rocket launches and thus space science production to automatically synchronize with the other sign specs. It has been working surprisingly well for such a simple and hacky solution. Oh no! An enemy expansion blocks our way! White Recluse, this is your time to shine in all your nighttime laser lit glory. That's pure brutality. We just plowed straight through them like they weren't even there. Man, this is something new. Everything is going exactly according to plan. I can't believe this is all turning out so well. Anyway then, I think we can safely skip ahead now to when the whole square of lasers will be complete. Wait, what is this? Why do these lasers keep on firing? What is going on? Oh no!